So a federal judge has temporarily blocked Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship. Now, although I believe this will become the law of the land, I think it's important to explain what's really going on here. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship and the federal judge who blocked it temporarily. Now, as I said from the beginning, I think this will become the law of the land. And the block from the judge, there's a 7-day window in which Trump can appeal. And of course, he will appeal, and I think he'll win. And I hope that he does, because we really need this. Before I go any further, let me show you an article right here, okay? I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'm going to tell you what it says. I want to have it right here so you know I'm not telling you any kind of lie. And I will also link to it in the box. But you see what it says right here: protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. Now you can see the date, January 20th, 2025. Right when he got in office, he issued this executive order right away. Now, let me just summarize what's going on. So the Dred Scott decision, what was that, 1857? Basically, that said that if you were a black person, you were not considered to be a citizen. The 14th Amendment comes in 1868 and says, yes, actually, if you're a black American, you are an American, you are a citizen. The 14th Amendment is for us as black Americans specifically. That's what it's for. It's for us. Unfortunately, this has been used to apply to the entire world of every Tom, Dick, and Harry to come over here, whether they be illegal, legal, whatever, have kids, and that kid is now considered to be a citizen. Under this executive order, the way it's going to work is as follows. If you don't have at least one parent who is a citizen or a lawful permanent resident, the children born to those parents does not get automatic birthright citizenship. Let me give you a few examples just to make it make sense. So if the father is a citizen and the mother is straight up illegal, the child does have birthright citizenship. If the father has a lawful permanent residence and the mother is illegal, the child does get birthright citizenship. If the mother and the father are here illegally, the child does not get birthright citizenship. If the mother and the father are here on visas temporarily, like a student visa, work visa, that's not a citizen or a lawful permanent resident, the child does not get automatic birthright citizenship. And to me, I think it makes sense, because check it out. Here's what happens a lot of times. People will come here as a tourist on a temporary visa, fully pregnant, with the intention of giving birth in the USA. That's called, what do they call that? Birth tourism. You have your baby in the USA, so that baby is now a citizen. There was an example in South Korea. One of their elected officials decided to come to the USA to have her children, so the kids would be exempt from South Korea's mandatory 2-year military service. Because if you are a dual citizen or a citizen of somewhere else, then the mandatory military service does not apply to you. You see how that works? They take advantage of it. Also, here's another example. I was following one of these convoys that came from Central America to the USA. You know how they be, about 5,000-10,000 deep, and this mass of people coming to the USA trying to bombard the southern border, trying to invade us. They followed this lady who was pregnant on one of these trips. She crosses the border and pretty much has a baby immediately, right away, right? Now, it's all this whole thing of, oh, it's so beautiful. You know how they do. The liberals, you know how they do. But all of a sudden, it's not just the mom and the baby. Here come a 4-year-old boy out of nowhere and the husband. So just like that, one person became 4 people, and they're not going to get deported because the baby is an anchor baby. That's where that whole term comes from, because the baby is a citizen. So you can't deport the baby. And if you deport the parents, who's going to take care of the baby? That's why it's called an anchor baby. And when they had the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City popping with all the migrants, you're talking about 3, 4, 5 children being born every week. So they come here with the purpose of having these kids because they know the kids cannot be deported and that will reduce their chances of being deported. But that practice will come to an end. The 14th Amendment is for us as Black Americans, not for you to take advantage of our generous nation. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Now, let's get to a news clip here. Of course, I will link to the clip in the box if you want to see it and hear it without my commentary. If you're on IG, Facebook, etc., visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
And we have breaking news now. A federal judge is temporarily blocking President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. The New Hampshire judge says he will certify a class action lawsuit on behalf of all the children affected by President Trump's EO and issue a preliminary injunction blocking it.
Let's pause for a minute. Now, the executive order says that it will go into effect 30 days after the order is in effect. As of right now, it's being blocked, so it's not really in effect. But once it's set in stone, law of the land, 30 days after that, it'll go into effect. So it will apply to children born at that time. If you're already born, you're already living, this order cannot and will not apply to you.
I remember just last month, the Supreme Court allowed President Trump to move forward on that executive order and limited the authority of federal judges to block the order without a class action. Let's bring in ABC News DC Bureau Managing Editor, along with ABC News contributor and legal analyst James Sample. So, Catherine, walk me through the details of this judge's order and what the judge is saying here.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. There was a hearing in New Hampshire, about an hour-long hearing in New Hampshire, where the judge went over his order here. And what this is doing is blocking the Trump administration's executive order that was issued, of course, on February 20th. So when anybody who was born in the United States after that executive order was signed. So that's who this applies to. So it's important to point out that this lawsuit was filed in New Hampshire last month. It was brought on behalf of pregnant immigrants, 2 immigrant parents and their infants. Now, you just mentioned that it does.
Hey, pregnant immigrants is crazy. So they're like, look, I'm over here in the USA. I planned my whole thing to have the anchor baby. And now Trump is trying to spoil my plans of having this anchor baby. Now I want to sue. Imagine that. Imagine that.
Come after the Supreme Court's order, a ruling, if you will, on the nationwide injunctions. Of course, this ruling comes from a federal judge in New Hampshire, but it does come after the Supreme Court's order. Now, what's interesting here is that the Supreme Court's order did leave the door open for challenges to seek relief by filing class action lawsuits. And that's what we are looking at here. So while the court did generally block this practice of nationwide injunctions, it did have those specific carve-outs. This is not a nationwide injunction. So these class action suits that you're seeing today essentially will achieve that same effect. It will be interesting to see, of course, how this plays out through the courts, through the appeals courts, and how the appeals courts interpret the Supreme Court's ruling as it relates to this. But right now, of course, the judge is issuing this block on this executive order from going into effect for certain classes of people.
So, James, what happens from here? Because the judge says that he is going to certify this class action, and the Supreme Court in their ruling did say, you know, the way to get a large nationwide type injunction is this way. So what are the next steps?
Well, the judge stayed the order for a period of 7 days, which is essentially giving the government time to appeal. An appeal in this case would go to the First Circuit, the Federal Court of Appeals that's primarily based in Boston. And then if it were to be appealed from there to the Supreme Court on an express track, presumably. But you're right that the Supreme Court's ruling did leave this door open, Diane, for a class action. It is an additional hurdle that plaintiffs and parties challenging government actions have to go through. And we often hear the term thrown around, class action. What does it actually mean in practice? Well, it means that there are four basic requirements of a class action. Numerosity, there need to be numerous people. That certainly applies here. Typicality, the claims of the representative party are typical of all of the absentee class members. So here, an unborn child or a child of an undocumented immigrant, their situation is typical of of those absentees who would be in that same circumstance. Commonality, they have common questions of law or fact. The common question here couldn't be plainer. Is the executive order to change the meaning of the 14th Amendment constitutional or not constitutional? And then finally, adequacy. Are the named class members going to adequately represent the interests of all of the class members? The judge in this case, a George W. Bush appointee, Joseph LaPlante, said yes. That is the mechanism at this point, based on last month's ruling, to challenge something on a nationwide basis.
All right, so there's more to that clip right there, but you get the general gist of what's happening. I want to just comment on something he said about this changing the meaning of the 14th Amendment. I'm not quite sure it's that. I think it's more about clarifying what the it's about clarifying what the original intent was. The original intent was not to allow for every person on planet Earth to come here and have their babies and have them considered to be U.S. citizens, despite the parents not being citizens at all. But as I close, I want to say this. I hope this becomes a law of the land. We need this because I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of being taken advantage of as a country. I'm tired of everybody from all over the world coming over here and doing whatever they want. That's over with. You want to be an immigrant to the country? Go ahead. You want to become a naturalized citizen, lawful permanent resident? Go ahead. Go through the legal process. But when you want to try to cut corners and find loopholes and take advantage of us, that's when I got a problem. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion on birthright citizenship? Should it be changed to what Trump is trying to change it to? Or should it remain the same? Let everybody from all over the world just come here, have babies, and the babies are considered to be citizens despite the parents not being citizens at all. Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I am 100% on board with what Trump is trying to do here. I hope it passes because, like I said throughout the entire video, we absolutely need this. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.